Hey everyone, it's Julie and Marc here from RVLove, and we're back with this live call series as part of our book launch for Living the RV Life, Your Ultimate Guide to Life on the Road. This call is with Chris and Cherie of Technomadia, so stay tuned. Welcome back everyone, thanks for joining us. You may have already seen some of the other videos in this live call series with the RV Geeks, Morton's on the Move and Less Junk More Journey. In case you haven't, just to let you know, the RV Geeks call is live and public on YouTube. However, the rest of the calls with Morton's on the Move, Less Junk More Journey and Technomadia are unlisted, still viewable, but not to the public. So you'll be able to access those through the links that you'll find in the description below of all of the video descriptions. You'll find that. So with that in mind, let's now introduce Chris and Cherie of Technomadia.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar with Chris and Cherie from Technomadia, they're huge in the connectivity space. If you're trying to connect to the internet in your RV or your boat or anywhere in the mobile lifestyle, they are the resource to go to learn more about that. And they were instrumental in us hitting the road back 5 years ago because they answered that question for us on connectivity. They produce a ton of great content to help people. And we serendipitously ran into them out on our first ever boondocking experience in the middle of the desert back...
We'd been on the road for 8 months. It was back in February of 2015. That was an amazing experience. We developed a friendship and have stayed in touch ever since. We're catching up again here now in Florida in the winter here in 2018. But there's some great information here in the call for you today.
Yeah, one thing I need to mention on the call though is a technology challenge on our side was we lost the first half of the recording.
Our computer blacked out in the middle of the call and our computer was doing the recording, so unfortunately we lost the first half of that call.
Yeah, but the second half of the recording's still there, so if it seems a little abrupt in how it starts, that's the reason why.
Yeah.
But with that, let's go ahead and jump right in.
In the call, of course, we cover technology, connectivity, some of the carriers, different hardware systems and batteries, RV, boating, all kinds of conversation. These guys are in chapter 7 of our book, Living the RV Life, Your Ultimate Guide to Life on the Road, talking about the subject of working from the road. And these guys have worked out how to do it because they've been veterans of the road for over 10 years and boaters now for more than 2 years. So without further ado, let's jump into the call with Chris and Cherie from Technomadia.
It's really it's very challenging with shadowing
for a boat,
on a boat. I know Nikki and Jason have that problem. It's really a challenge.
Do you guys have
ours won't be as much of a challenge because we don't have like
a mast
sails and stuff.
We do have radar, but
but our solar panels will be about level with the radar, so it shouldn't be as much of a challenge.
But when you're on the hook out at anchor and you just rotate around in the breeze, you could easily have a shadow where you didn't 5 minutes earlier.
Yes, I know. That's always a problem. It's tricky to research which panels are better designed for shadow resistance, because that's something that panel design can make a huge difference on, but it's something that is not really written up or even documented. So it's almost like word of mouth of like which panels are built well in the shadow resistant department.
Doesn't it also have a great deal to do with how they're wired? And
yes.
Have it so that one corner of one panel covered will screw the whole system up versus panel being its own individual island.
Right. It's really kind of amazing. And a lot of people with solar do not realize this, that most panels actually, even if you just cover a tiny, like 1/16 of the panel with a hard shadow, the entire panel's output might be cut in half or down to nothing. And I see a lot of RV installations where the panel is like right up against a vent cover, and like that panel at least half the day is not helping you at all. Some panels in the wiring will cut off, like if the one corner's off, internally they'll have bypass diodes so that the panel will keep working partially if the shadows are cutting some of it off. But it's definitely shadows and solar are a very bad mix.
I think we lost Marc and Julie. Oh, they're there.
Oh, they're back.
Sorry,
We lost this for a minute. I don't know what's happened. Our computer just went black, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? But it didn't look like you guys impacted the conversation at all. You guys were flowing right through, and
Nice.
and with editing,
No offense, Marc and Julie. We got along all right.
No offense taken by any means.
We got into big old Victron versus Xantrex fight, but you know.
Oh, that's all good. That's all
No, we don't fight about that. Actually, we recognize the beauty of Victron equipment. We are very much in awe of your system. And while ours does a fine job, we recognize that, at least without having had personal experience with Victron, it appears to us that we have a very nice Cadillac quality system, and you guys have a Mercedes level system or something like that.
Well, yeah, Victron's good. Their stuff is not super expensive, which is kind of great. It's, I'm a big Victron fan. I'm going to bring up our remote control panel just because it's the.
Well, the one thing I like about our Victron system in ours is that hybrid inverter ability to be able to be plugged into a small input from shore power, and to be able to have our rig function as if it's on big amp shore power, because the hybrid can pick up the difference. And that's a pretty cool feature. You're getting 10 amps from a small plug-in, you're picking up the solar, but you try and run something that's bigger amperage, then everything can join together and give you what you need. That's a pretty amazing system. But yeah, Peter and John, you guys have an amazing system too. So it's great to see all these. The technology has come so far compared to where it was 10 years ago, and even 3 years ago, to make the lithium so much more available, and then the Victron coming out of the boating into the RV world big way. So that's been really exciting to see. And I think I caught up on most of those chat before our little thing dropped off, but the chat's empty right now. So people, go ahead and jump in with some new questions into the chat window.
It doesn't have to be, you don't have to ask tech questions.
You know what, while we're waiting for some other people to ask some questions, in there's about 15 minutes to go, something that I think is really interesting is, I mean, you guys have really, not only have you been on the road a lot of years, all of you guys, but weather and dealing with unexpected weather situations. That's very topical right now. We've just started the call off earlier for anyone that may have joined, that we've been kind of got caught up in that blizzard in Kansas last night. That's kind of thrown our travel plans off a little bit, had to be flexible. You guys had a massive adjustment to make in your first, how many months did you have the boat when you were fleeing? 6 months. When you were fleeing Hurricane Irma and not even knowing if you were going to come back to an intact boat. I know that was a really difficult time for you, but you know, I mean, I don't want to assume, but I kind of assume that everyone on the call here knows you and maybe knows a lot of that story, but this would be a good conversation to talk about how to deal with unexpected weather situations, because
well, that's the thing, is hurricanes are expected. There's really good hurricane forecasting, so you can make plans, and that played to our favor. We had to make some quick decisions and some big decisions to leave our boat secured when what was predicted at the time to be the ground zero for a Hurricane 4 strike. The things that concern me is watching, like out in California with those fires. I mean, there was not much warning. There's not much prediction. People are having to abandon their homes and
we had 2 whole days to pack up and move, and we decided both of our houses, the bus and the boat, were in Irma's cone of death. So it was like, we can save one house. We can't get the boat out of the zone, but we can go evacuate with the bus and leave.
But a lot of weather systems aren't unexpected, but you have to get into the habit of being aware of weather and tracking weather. You know, if you're
all the time,
you know, blizzards and things like that, you know, hurricanes, but there are some weather patterns that just don't give you much warning. Tornadoes. I mean, you can know that thunderstorms are going to be around, but the tornadoes themselves can be so hyper local and so devastating. Fires and earthquakes and things like that. Those are the ones that scare me.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, at least hurricanes, you generally have quite a bit of warning.
Right.
And you know what's funny with this blizzard thing, you know, we left Colorado because we knew there was a big storm coming into Colorado, and I did look forward and saw that there was potential for the storm, but I was hoping we'd be ahead of it, but then it just came further south than originally predicted, and it, you know, slowed down our travel. But I guess just being flexible and being willing to adjust your plans to be able to make it
absolutely work. Staying aware, keeping flexibility. I mean, we still don't make reservations or plans too far out in advance, whether we're RVing or boating. There's so much that you can. A
schedule is one of the most dangerous things you could pack, and
definitely on a boat,
particularly in RVing too, and trying to push through bad weather. If you've got, like, this doesn't seem like a good day to travel, don't travel. You really don't have to.
We've just gotten to we don't commit to in-person events and places where we have to be. We'll maybe
Very,
do one
very
or two
selectively.
events a year, because the stress. I mean, last year, yes, Irma was a huge event for us, and getting back and living in a devastated area for 6 weeks before we could even leave. And then dealing with damage from that storm to the boat. But the thing that stressed us out most is we had committed to speak at an event in February that was halfway across country. And by the time we got to needing to do that trip, we were exhausted. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of spoons. We all have so many spoons that we can have in play at any one time to deal with big life stuff. Our spoons were out. We had no spoons left at this point. And now we had to store our boat when we didn't want to be storing our boat, after having just spent 6 weeks in maintenance mode on it, on the hard living in very extreme conditions again. And then we had to drive across country and go speak at this event. And we're introverts. I don't like going to events to begin with. I don't like having to deal with 200 people.
You're better on the screen.
I'm better on the screen. I'm much friendlier on the screen than in person.
No, you're great in person too. But yeah, you got to limit the number of events.
Yeah, it drains me quickly. And that was what was stressful, is having that event that we had committed to, and then having to get across country. And, we were planning like a 2-month RV trip to get out there, and it was compressed to 2 weeks. And when you are out of energy and out of that time, and I'm sure you guys are experiencing that now. I mean, you're juggling so much with the book launch, with the movie launch, and everything that you've been doing this year.
You're probably looking forward to hiding time.
It's been intense.
It is, and so like you said, the most dangerous thing you can pack is a schedule. I love that. We have a scheduled thing tomorrow. We have an event in Nashville tomorrow, or day after tomorrow.
Wednesday night. So what is it now?
Drive safe.
Publicized, and so we do have to put big miles on to get there.
But we had we had a little bit of leeway in that we were had planned. In fact, I just announced a meetup in Kansas City for Sunday afternoon and posted it 2 hours before I saw what the weather was doing. Like, okay, I just spent all day researching this in venues and then posted it, and now I'm having to cancel the thing.
Right.
Lewis, I didn't even get to post at all for that same reason. And we're just like, you know what? We can't. Safety comes first. We just have to cancel those 2 events and do what we can to communicate with people digitally to be able to deliver on that. But we're confident we can get to Nashville. If we just drive all day tomorrow, we'll be fine. The event's not till Wednesday. We'll get there Tuesday night. So we still have really another half a day of leeway to get to Nashville. But yeah, it has been a little crazy of the schedule for sure. We feel like now with the book launch behind us, or we're in the throes of the book launch, that this is what I said to Marc last Wednesday, the day after it officially published. I said, do you realize that was our last hard deadline for the year? Like our last deadline, you're really going to that, like you say, when you have a live event, it's a hard deadline. Now there's a lot of things we still have to do around it, but they're not hard deadlines with the same kind of consequences.
Right.
We're definitely looking forward to having a break over the holidays, over Christmas, and reevaluating what's ahead for 2019. Because we've had conversations with Chris and Cherie many times before, with Peter and John, just in terms of getting your experience and wisdom on how you do navigate this as you grow in this world. And that's been very valuable, and that's where we're at again. You always have to keep hitting that reset button and be reminded of why we're all living this life.
Right. And it's very tempting, because as you grow as a blogger or someone who's sharing your life online, is more and more events and opportunities you get reached out to, and people want to book you for your events, and it's hard. I mean, it's flattering. You want to be there and you want to go meet the people that are supporting your travels. But that goes against it. I created a location independent lifestyle, not so that I could just
be on a schedule.
Our friends, Chris and Jim of the RV Geeks, they go to all the events and teach technology for geeks. Sorry,
other,
not the RV.
Yeah, the
too many geeky RVs. The Geeks on Tour, they've been going to these for like 20 years and they call themselves carnies.
Their schedule is driven all year long.
And it's like, no, that is not the lifestyle I want for myself. So we will do 1 or 2 events a year. We are committed now to we just committed to the annual bash for escapers.
Okay.
But, you know, they worked with us in the background. It's like, okay, we want to set intentions to speak here, but do not announce, do not post to anyone until we tell you to that we're going to be there. Because I need to get to hurricane season this year before I make any plans. And as is, we're not going to RV this winter. We're staying on the boat.
And we're going to take the boat to Arizona.
Yeah,
the canal just opened. The Florida-Arizona canal is now functional, and
Yeah. You know how to pull some strings.
That's truly landmark event. Let's jump back into a question. Nancy Patrick asked, "How do you to you guys, to Chris and Cherie, how do you compare the work and maintenance of the boat and the bus and the joy you get? We watch the winds and look at each other and say, no way, gorgeous views and unique experiences, but we don't have the energy to do what they do."
Well, I watch the winds and I say, no way. I love the winds. I mean, they're great friends and we communicate with them. Peter and John are as well. They've actually gotten to sail with them. What they're doing is a very different adventure than what we are doing.
We're RVing on the water.
Yeah, we have new challenges.
I'm more about your style.
Boating is a new challenge. There is more maintenance. There are the highs and lows are different than RVing. But what we're doing is, for us, a lot more approachable while still working full time. The winds have been able to convert their income source to being around telling their own story. They're no longer doing a lot of the contract work. We still work full time. We couldn't work still full time and take on sailing around the world. And I don't really have the interest to sail around the world.
Yeah, and you asked about like the work and maintenance, and the work and maintenance and stuff, there's definitely more on a boat, but the first time through is kind of cool and exciting. You're learning something new. That's actually part of the fun of it is, wow, how does this work? How do I take it apart? How do I put it back together? What is this system and how can we make it better? So there's all that whole learning process. We've been through that on an RV. So we kind of, doing more work and maintenance in the RV world is just kind of like a rerun and not so exciting. But on the boat, the first time something breaks at least is cool. The second time it breaks is not
sometimes it's cool. I mean, there are so many comparisons to RVing and boating. We've done a lot of videos on it, a lot of live chats on it. There's so many different ways to compare the two. For us right now, the novelty of boating is what is exciting for us. I really just feel that it was just this past summer that we actually got into our boating groove, because the first year was so eventful with the hurricane and the hitting the underwater channel marker and just learning
how to turn it on.
learning how to dock the thing without crushing your neighbors. So really, it was just this summer that I think we felt in a groove.
Oh, it was,
and we're really just enjoying the joys of it. And one thing that we've found is after 12 years of full-time travel is we're liking a slower pace.
And the one thing that is different about boating versus RVing is boating, there's so many of the cool places you could stay with a boat are right in the heart of the cool town. So we've been inching our way up Florida and staying in cool downtowns for weeks on end.
Or months.
And in an RV, you might be 10 or 15 miles away, but that's a whole world away. You can't walk out your front door and be walking down Main Street, which has been so fun.
We're right now docked. We got to the southern part of the St. Johns River in late October. Got down to Sanford, immediately learned that our reservation that what we had for storing the boat for the winter up in Jacksonville got canceled on us. And then miraculously, the marina here in Sanford had room for us to stay for the whole winter.
And when we had gotten to Sanford, we were walking around town that very first day. We're like, God, I'd love to spend more than a week. This town seems so cool. And it turns out we get to spend here a couple months. So nice.
So out our door, we've got about 40 microbreweries.
It just seems like
20 bars, live music constantly. They constantly have parties going on. We had couch races the other day.
What was that?
It's just so much going on here, and
right
we decided
out our front door.
We're like, okay, we were supposed to be storing the RV this winter, the boat, and returning to the RV. But what crazy person would leave in the prime cruising season in Florida, and go rush themselves to go do maintenance on a boat? On a bus. I get them.
They shouldn't both have beat words. That's a problem.
They go do all this because RV needs all new tires. It needs full maintenance around. And then we'd only be in it for a few weeks before we had to turn around and return to the boat to get it to its, you know, to continue the journey. And we're like, wait a minute, we don't have to be those crazy people. We did that last year, and we're not doing that this year.
Yeah, so we could rent an RV and still go to the annual bash. Hey, this is going to be more different adventure.
That's awesome. There's a comment here from the RVG saying, watch out for freezing fog. Guys, what do you have to do with that?
Yeah, I don't think we have that in Florida.
No,
freezing fog.
So there are weather phenomena that you learn about as you travel around the country, and we were in Idaho.
Western Idaho on our way into Eastern Oregon,
and it was foggy out and very pretty, and we didn't realize that fog can, under certain conditions, freeze and fall to the road surface and become black ice, even though it hasn't rained.
Ah.
And so we were driving along in the RV, and I started to get that feeling in the steering wheel that I don't feel like I have the tight kind of connection to the road that I should be having. I started to back down, and a pickup truck was accelerating up the highway behind us, and I could see it in the mirrors, and I just lifted off the accelerator. I was in the right lane, but this guy didn't pay any. I suppose he was a local. He had an Idaho plate, as I recall. He came up behind us, doing probably twice as fast as we were. We were on the interstate, probably doing about 30, and he was doing at least 60. And no care whatsoever that the road was obviously very shiny and it was cold out. And all of a sudden, he started doing this. As he did that, he's coming up behind us so rapidly that I told John to brace himself. I said, hold on, he's going to hit us. And I was sure he was going to plow into the back of our RV, but he spun off the road into a snowbank instead.
So that's definitely one of those weather phenomena that I don't think you can necessarily plan for. I don't think the freezing fog was in the forecast.
But just be aware.
You can go south.
Yeah. I've been thinking all the like, why are we still up here? God.
Just so you know, we were in New Jersey this morning, and now we are in Roanoke, Virginia, and within the next 2 days, we will be in New Orleans.
So while we were thrilled, Cherie and Chris, that you guys found your Zen path for the year and have a calm plan, we're very disappointed that our paths will not cross as soon as we were hoping.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of the downsides.
Well, we're still hoping we will get to see Marc and Julie in the next day or two, but we're not sure yet.
Well, if you hold up your plans by one day, we might be able to pull it off.
We'll see what's happening.
We'll talk.
We'll talk later.
Oh, we're right on 7, so this is how many? We've got a couple more
if you guys
questions.
don't mind staying a couple of minutes, we've got a couple.
No problem. This is fun.
Ken asks, still seeking first ever motorhome,
yes.
preferably country coach or Ford travel. Have been very surprised at the low CCC cargo capacity of several tag axle 45-foot DP country coach. Also seeking ample galley space for our whole food plant-based meal prep.
If you want galley space, get a boat.
Yeah, indeed. Any suggestions on the best approach to finding the coach we want, an older CC? Well, I mean, I'm just really happy to see that you are already doing all that research. We've had a couple of emails with you about these research as well, Ken. I remember seeing that. And yes, I'm really happy to see that you're still looking at cargo carry capacity even on the 45s, because we have been surprised by a few coaches that have surprisingly low cargo carry capacities, even on tags. And we saw a couple of country coach. We saw a couple of country coach that had less than 2,000 pound cargo carry capacity on a diesel.
One had only 900.
Yeah, it had 900. The Inspire quad slide. But yeah, I guess just keep the research, and that's
the more slides they have, the more they weigh too.
Yeah, the slides definitely cut into it, and your whole food plant based. You also might look at your kitchen in ways that you can extend it. We did a little extension in our kitchen as part of our renovation that we'll be sharing in the next month or so. Ways to make your kitchen much more functional than it even started out with. So, Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, just one kitchen mod we did that expanded our kitchen space was we got rid of the stove and oven. We did this both on the bus and on the boat. Turned it all into counter space, and then we have an induction cooktop on the bus. We just pull it out when we need it. When we aren't actually cooking, we just keep it stored away, so we have all counter space.
And because they're a whole plant base, I mean, that would probably work really well.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a great insight, Chris, for sure.
Don't be afraid to modify and change, anything and everything. Just take out, I mean, a lot of people worry about resale. I think it's more important that you just make it work for you. You just don't worry too much about that, especially, as you said, you're looking for an older coach anyway. You're not looking for a brand new coach where it may affect resale. There's some things we didn't do to our Tiffin because it was newer. We were worried it would affect resale, but the great thing about buying an older one, like Chris and Cherie have done, like we've done, just do whatever the heck you want with it and make it your own. But they're really good floor plans on those ones that you're looking at, Ken. They have really good layout. Like we're here, we've got our slide in at the moment. We kept it in while we're in Kansas because of the snow. We didn't want snow building up. We wanted to keep the insulation, have a smaller space to heat through this weather. And it's very livable with the slide in. It's no problem. You don't have any slides on your bus, of course, Chris and Cherie, and that's very, very livable. Same with this one, even with the slide in, there's nothing we can't access.
Yeah,
so definitely a consideration.
There's some absolutely fabulous older Ford travel designs. That's like one of the peak coolest RVs so yeah, some older Ford travels are some really nice ones.
But being older, they're still going to have their quirks. I mean, we joke about doing a video eventually about when we get caught up on our content of like Cece and her quirks, because even though we didn't pay a lot of money for this coach, we've definitely spent money on not only the remodel but just other things to repairs. We replaced the slide seals recently. There's a few other quirky things. We had to replace a hose the other week that ended up being a little bit of a costly repair. So it's it's definitely not that the money stops there.
Definitely not. No, we ended up pretty much replacing all systems on our bus because it was a late 80s RV conversion. Yes. So everything on it when we got it was due for replacement, and that was just part of it.
And we bought the bus for only $8,000, and so we felt like we could spend money to make it cool and unique.
And even still, all the money we put into it, it was still cheaper than going and buying something fairly new.
Class A, yeah.
Absolutely, and better quality.
Yeah, that's a cool rig you guys have too.
Yes, you totally.
James Stray is asking, how hard is it driving a Class A, Class C, or travel trailer in strong wind? It's very hard. Wind is definitely something you want to avoid when you're looking at a forecast. That's one of the weather conditions I would highly recommend avoiding, especially if you have a fifth wheel or very large surface area rig. Diesel Class A's are heavier and more planted, especially tag axles. They're far more comfortable driving than in a gas coach or a Class C.
Difference.
You can totally tell the difference. But travel trailers, if you have you'd want to have a special hitch to help hold that in place too. But if you see strong winds in the forecast, meaning anything above 30 miles an hour, I would discourage driving in those conditions.
It is a total white knuckle driving experience. It is not going to be a fun drive. So really, if you can spend an extra day where you're at and wait it out. And often, actually, one of the things with wind is often mornings aren't windy, afternoons are. So leave at 6 in the morning and get where you're going by noon, or get halfway where you're going by noon, and then just wait out the rest of the wind. It's that's also very important in boats too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Winds are generally stronger in the afternoons than mornings for sure. That's good insight.
And that goes back to Chris's earlier quote about, what was it, the schedule? Don't pack your schedule. Is that what you said?
The most dangerous thing you can pack.
The most dangerous thing to pack is a schedule. Oh, it's very true. And I'm glad you said that, because I think that's something that we really, let's keep reminding.
If somebody does get caught in wind, or they're in a situation where they have no choice, whatever it might be, the number one most important thing to do is to slow down. That may sound obvious, but a lot of people don't think of that. We see lots of people zooming along the highway, and even with our Class A diesel pusher with a tag axle, which is quite well planted at 19 tons, we slow down. And we went through a lot of wind today. And slow down as much as you need to, and then if that's not enough, or if you're able to, get off the road.
Yep. No, that's great insight. You're going to feel so much more in control at lower speeds. Absolutely. Higher speeds, things get floaty, and and the consequences are so much harder, because if you get pushed hard, it's so much more difficult to regain control. So
it's most important when the roads are wet. So if you're
unfortunately, often wind comes with rain.
Right. If you're on a wet road, if it's slippery at all, you got to remember that, of course, the corrections you're going to make in the steering wheel are going to be putting lateral pressure on the tires to try to slide out. And those corrections could lead to a skid or loss of control if the wetter or slicker the road is, the more easily that'll happen.
that's great. Thanks for sharing that, Peter. Appreciate that.
A couple more. I think we're
and,
wrapping up with this.
Crystal and Fred added a comment because they're hot air balloon pilots. Hot air balloon pilots hate lots of wind. Gary Quimby knows about high wind warnings, high wind landings. We helped crew with them, and then Gary went up on a high wind day.
I think more than once.
And more than once, it landed and just drag him across the desert and the shrubs. So balloons are especially bad for wind, but
Yes.
appreciate professional driving tips on that, Peter. That's great insight for sure.
Nancy said, Julie, Mark, shouldn't those of us here get a sneak peek at your remodel? Well, that's coming soon.
No.
You are kind of getting a sneak peek. You can just see our shade behind us. That's your sneak peek. You can't see the sneak peek now. We are in a mess right now. We've been driving and, dodging blizzards and things, and you don't even want to see what it looks like now. But coming soon.
Well, apparently she does. So
what's that?
Apparently she does want to see.
Well, there's, with all of these commitments that we've had this year, and then the movie premiere, and then Nomad Fest last month, and then the book this month, and we just haven't had time. We've got all of the footage. It's all filmed. We are really excited to share it with everyone. We think everyone's really going to enjoy it and really be surprised at what we've done. It definitely wasn't, we didn't gut the thing at all. There was a lot of really great bones in this RV, a lot of really great, we're still sitting on the original 20-year-old sofa, ultra leather sofa. It's so comfortable. And, we just didn't see the point in changing things just because we could, but stayed with what worked. And so we're excited to share it. And that's going to be our Christmas project, getting caught up on that. But,
well, Nancy made another comment. I second this. I meant to say this earlier in the call. So glad to see you're feeling much better, Peter. Your voice
was so
back.
Sick when we did your call.
Well, and not to bore anybody, but this seems to be a very long, drawn-out thing here. I got a flu shot, and I have a feeling that I had a reaction to it because I still have problems. I got an ear infection. I can't hear out of my right ear still. So, and again, not to bore everybody, and I want to thank Nancy and Marc and Julie for the well wishes, but maybe flu shots aren't the best thing.
I remember my grandmother got one, and she got the worst flu she ever had.
Yeah, and when my mom got a shingles shot, she got shingles, but
and she'd never had it before.
So you gotta wonder about some of these things.
I got the new shingles vaccine last year. All good, all good. Knock on wood.
But it looks like Laurie's had to drop off, and I think we got to all of the questions.
Yep.
What's that? Oh, there's one more. James says, my wife Jodie's looking for any advice on leaving a full-time job teaching to hit the road because it's scary. Leaving a full-time job is scary, or leaving full-time job teaching? I think any change to hit.
Any life change is scary.
Or staying in a job you're not really inspired by is scary too. So
that's true. But there are people that we've met on the road that do teach online. You do need to have teaching online, Nancy's saying, that we have met that have been able to transition and teach online. If you have those skills, I mean, obviously you need to prioritize internet, as any of us who are working from the road do. But Chris and Cherie, I'm sure you've met a lot of people too who actually do teaching.
Oh yeah, and there's other forms of teaching, even if you don't want to go through the credentialing, or if you don't want to stay in your field. There's other ways to apply your teaching skills. Yes. A lot of what Marc and Julie do is teaching.
Right.
Yeah, well, and Michael Sutton, he's a professor, and he mentioned here that the demand for online teaching is very high right now. And also, he mentioned substituting. So that is a job that appears you can take remotely easier than one might have originally thought. So
yeah.
And
Julie says check flex jobs and virtual vocations. Yeah. A couple of options for you there. You're welcome, James.
Yeah, James got a bunch.
And then as an aside, Ken said keeping humidity over 50% is an excellent way to keep the flu virus at bay. Excellent.
Oh, good. Hooray, Florida.
We're in Florida.
Well, we're in Florida. In Florida by this weekend, just a few days to go. But Michael also said HERC.com for other online learning jobs. Nancy said having retirement pension may not be as available as it is staying in one state. So many different things to talk about there with all of those options. Crystal and Fred got to go. Happy safe travels. Going to be North Florida, Georgia over the next month. Hope to see you on the road. That would be great.
Yeah, there's been a number of folks that are needing to drop off, and
So
but there's also been some really great thank yous from a lot of, I don't know if you guys have been seeing in the chat, a lot of people are saying thanks, and
great to have everyone on the call.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful.
So thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks Chris and Cherie for joining us for this call tonight. Thanks Peter and John for dropping in and joining us, and RV Freedom and Curtis and all these others that are also featured in the book. There you go, Living the RV Life. These guys are all in chapter 7, working from the road. You got it? Yay! That's fantastic. You'll have to send us a photo. We're doing a gallery of photos of everyone with their copies of the book.
Go ahead and take a screenshot. What are you waiting for? Everybody
oh, no, that's what he's going to look at them all. That's we love that side. That's so great.
I don't know.
And Chris and Cherie giving them as Christmas gifts to everyone this year.
Well, and I want to say, you were mentioning about people looking for different ways to work on the road. You could write a book about RVing, but you have huge shoes to fill now if you're going to.
That's right. That's right. We're very, very. Doug says thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate and love the book. That's fantastic, guys. We have to say we are thrilled with the feedback from everyone. We've been getting 5-star reviews on Amazon. I haven't checked Barnes and Noble yet or Goodreads. So anyone out there that's reading the book, when you've had a chance, when you're finished, we'd love it if you'd write a review. All of these amazing people that we've had here on these calls are in the book, and many, many others. RV Frida's one of them. Brandon Bits RV, Dawn and Mike. There's so many other people in the book with fantastic stories, and a lot that don't even have channels or blogs, and they've got amazing stories too. But it's very delighted at the response I've been getting from everyone. It's been a really fun journey. Seeing the book, we saw the book in Costco last week. Big piles of them in Costco.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
It's crazy. It's been kind of surreal. But just want to say thanks for you guys. We've got another. Nancy said, "Is this the last of these calls?" This is the last of the calls. We had 4. We've had a couple of requests for some more. So we're looking at doing one with Eric and Kayla from liveandlight.net. You may know their channel as well. They travel in an Integra. We were actually just up in New York for their wedding last month. So there's proof that you can hit the road in an RV and still end up getting happily married at the end of the experience. But I think we'll wrap up now. We're 1/4 the hour. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, especially for Chris and Cherie for being the primary topics tonight.
Yay.
Yeah,
always love hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, so thanks so much for
hopefully we'll see you soon in person, I hope.
We'll be in Florida. We'll be in Orlando, in Tampa by this weekend, and then Orlando just after. And I think you're only an hour north of Orlando, right? Something
less than, yeah. We're technically in Orlando suburbs, so.
Awesome.
Yeah. Let us get to Florida. You're not going to New Orleans now. You're staying in Florida.
Nope.
Okay.
We're staying here. We're here until the end of January at least.
Perfect.
Yeah, they were planning to go to New Orleans until they found out we were going there. We know.
Well, you can just slow down your travel and meet up with us like at Birmingham or Chattanooga. We'll talk. Chris and Cherie, we'll catch up with you in Florida soon. Everyone else, we'll see you on another call. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a great evening, and we'll catch you soon.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thanks so much for watching the call today. If you have any questions or comments, put them down in the comments section below. Give it a thumbs up if you like it. If you haven't already caught the other live calls in this series, you'll want to check those out with the RV Geeks, which is live and public on YouTube and available privately from our website or in the direct links in these video descriptions below, with Morton's on the Move and Less Junk, More Journey. Of course, if you haven't already picked up a copy of our book, Living the RV Life, Your Ultimate Guide to Life on the Road, we'll put the link to that down in the description below. It has over 60 5-star reviews on Amazon, so go and grab yourself a copy. You can read more about Chris and Cherie and their story, as well as RV Geeks, Morton's on the Move, Less Junk, More Journey, and many, many RVers many of which don't even have a blog or a YouTube channel but have awesome stories to share as well. So with all of that, we'd like to say thanks again, and until next time, we'll see you on the road.